Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history and geography of Beirut in Lebanon. And sorry if my camera is still kind of wobbly. I've been working on fixing it. Believe me, this is vastly better than what it was. But it's still not perfect, and I apologize if that bothers you. No one's complained, but it bothers me. So it's a work in progress, and it will be resolved very soon. Beirut is the capital of Lebanon, a very beautiful, very tiny country in the Levant, which is a region in the very easternmost section of the Mediterranean. This is the Mediterranean here, which typically is synonymous with the Holy Land. We have Israel, Palestine, Syria, the Syrian coast up here. We have, I guess Jordan is considered part of it. I suppose the Sinai Peninsula is part of it, but this kind of area over here, I just realized I'm zoomed in on the city. You can't really see the whole area of gesturing. I just pointed to all those areas, trust me. That's all considered the Levant. Why don't I just zoom out? That's a good idea. Hold on. There we go. All right. Syrian coast. You can see Israel over here. Palestine, I don't think you can see the West Bank. Jordan's over there. And trust me that the Sinai Peninsula is down there, okay? All right. That's the Levant, the Holy Land, the setting for the majority of biblical stories. As you can see, Beirut is on the coast. It is a very large seaport. So the two main geographic features of the city are, of course, the Mediterranean and the coastline, but also the Lebanon mountains that dominate the city skyline and gives the country its name, Lebanon. So if you look to the east in Beirut, you see huge, beautiful, snowy mountains. If you look to the west, you see a big, beautiful Mediterranean Sea, all blue and lovely, crashing against the shore. Very gorgeous spot in the world, isn't it? You get the best of both worlds. Beirut's history is quite long, and as of the 1970s, gets extremely complicated. So let's start dissecting the history here in a kind of Cliff Notes version. Very basic, but just trying to get as much as I can while still being relaxing. A lot of these topics are not relaxing at all, just to warn you about that. But I will try to deliver them in a way that is still calming and will still put you to sleep, and in a way that will keep my channel monetized. So let's get into it. This area was first settled around 3000 BCE. And the Phoenicians would have set up shop here in about the 15th century BCE. Now, who were the Phoenicians? The Phoenicians were an ancient group of people that lived in what's now Lebanon, but not really here. They named it Berytus. They mainly lived in cities farther south. Let me find them for you. There's Tyre and Sidon, where there are two very major cities, particularly Tyre. The Phoenicians were seafarers. They were big-time traders. They were not conquerors. They were not militaristic. They liked to trade, and so they sailed from their ports out into the Mediterranean, out into southern Europe, northern Africa, and all the islands in between, trading. Primarily, they would trade in purple dye, which Phoenicians comes from the Greek word for purple. It came from a sea snail that was found here in the Mediterranean. They'd crush it up and make the purple dye. Very, very prized. We're going to talk a lot more. Actually, no, it's weird. We're going to talk a lot more about the Phoenicians throughout this week, because the next three locations we're going to have very close-knit histories. Two of those locations were former Phoenician ports. So we're going to talk more about the Phoenicians later this week. We're also going to talk a lot more about the Romans. The Romans conquered this area in 64 BCE. Beirut became a colony in 14 BCE. And of course was a thriving trading port. Not so much a big city center. That would have been Baalbek, which I've already done a video on. I'll link it up in the corner there. Sure to check that out and see the beautiful ruins there from the Roman times. Beirut was not really a huge thriving city until the 20th century, so just keep that in mind. What was here, though, was destroyed by an earthquake and a tidal wave in 551 CE, and the Romans pretty much abandoned it. So in 635, it was very simple for the Arabs to conquer the area, claim it as theirs, and it was ruled over for quite a long time by the various different caliphates like the Rashidun Caliphate, the Umayyads, the Abbasids, and probably many more, to be honest, maybe the Fatimids at one point. The Crusaders would come into this area in the year 1100 and turn this into a base for their operations. And there were many battles between the Christian Crusaders and the Muslims over control of not just what's now Beirut, but the coastal area in general. Eventually, it would be conquered by the Mamluks in 1291. Like permanently, it went back and forth for a bit. There were quite a few battles. Saladin was even involved in some of them. A very famous Arab general at this time. Over time, the area would eventually fall into the control of the Ottoman Empire by the year 1516. And they held it for many hundreds of years. It even became a vilayet, which is a governorate, in a sense, in the year 1888. Of course, World War I would soon change all that. It was given to the Allies in 1918 after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Pretty much anything that was once under the control of the Ottomans, since it was dissolved at the end of World War I, were handed out to the British and the French, and the British and the French divided up the land and decided what they wanted to control. And Lebanon fell under the control of France. It became part of the French Mandate. Very importantly, so did Syria up here. Syria and Lebanon's history would be very closely linked from this point on. The French era really changed Beirut. This is when it finally starts to become a very major city, a very major port city. Now Sidon and Tyre, not so much. Now it's Beirut's time to shine in its history. And this is when some very beautiful French architecture would be built throughout most of downtown Beirut, looking a lot like Paris, to be honest. Little cafes and wrought iron balconies, things like that. I love that style of architecture. It's very beautiful, I think. But then, of course, World War II would change all of that. The Allies would occupy Beirut starting in 1941, after wresting it from the control of Nazi-occupied France. And eventually, not long after that, Lebanon would gain complete independence in 1943 with Beirut as its capital. Beirut became the capital in 1920 during the French Mandate, and now is the capital of independent Lebanon. And this is when Beirut really starts to blossom once again under the control of its own government. First of all, important to mention in its history of the city, is the banking industry, which would begin sometime in the early 1960s. And it was a major economic force in Beirut, and many organizations, I think even countries, would do their banking through the banking system here in Beirut. Now, what's important to mention in history is the religions of Lebanon. Pretty much since Christians existed, there's been Christians living here. Since Islam has existed, there's been Muslims living here. In three large factions, you have the Shia and the Shiite, of course, and the Druze as well. Large Druze population in Beirut and throughout Lebanon. The Christians have the Maronites, which, correct me, please, but I don't know any other place in the world where Maronites have a majority. I don't even know any other places where Maronites worship, so if you can tell me, anyone watching this, maybe you're Maronite, not Lebanese. Where else do Maronites exist? Because I only hear about it in Lebanon. Maronites and Greek Orthodox is pretty big in Beirut. You also have a Jewish population. What else? There's like a bunch of other religions that call Lebanon and Beirut home. And the Lebanese government was very worried that there would be religious conflict. So based on a census in, I want to say, the 1930s, 51% of the population was Christian. So they decided that the government should be ran by majority Christians, and that each section of the government would be ruled by a different branch of religion to try to keep it all fair and even. And it sounds like one of those things that works on paper. But determining this based on a census that by now was so long ago really starts to change things. Like, what if there's a sudden population boom in one of these religions? Then what happens? Well, we would find out how that would happen with the formation of Israel in, what was it, 1948, I want to say. Thousands upon thousands of Palestinians fled, and many settled here in Beirut, but mainly in like this southern area of Lebanon. And the population of Muslims increased by like 10% or something in Lebanon. Many other conflicts in Israel and Palestine would lead to Palestinian immigrants. Immigration. Refugees, that's the word I'm looking for, refugees. Including at one point the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, I think, would flee and relocate to Beirut and southern Lebanon in general, I suppose, but mainly Beirut. So the population was becoming increasingly more Muslim, but the power was still held by the Christians, and this started to lead to a lot of tensions. It started to lead to conflicts and scuffles, that when one side would have a small scuffle, the other side would have a slightly larger scuffle that led to the other side having a slightly larger scuffle, until you have assassinations, attacks, just horrible acts of violence, and those would start to spiral into the Lebanese Civil War that officially began in 1975. Beirut was split in two, with the Green Line separating the Muslim population from the Christian one, and conflict would occur on both sides of that Green Line. Very destructive conflict. It was an all-out war. Syria would get involved. They would send their troops in to help and really just lead to more chaos in the area. And they're going to stay after the Civil War. Just hold on to that thought, okay? Tensions did not calm down, and peace was not declared until 1990. And now Beirut is in tatters. And this was a slow period of growth. Growth would happen, but it would take a bit of time, and there were some hiccups along the way. This growth was led by Rafiq al-Hariri. who really united both sides, Christian and Muslim, I should say, really tried to unite all religions to work together, say like, listen, we might worship different, but we're all Lebanese, and there are no censuses in Lebanon because of this, because they don't want one side to think, oh, we're more populous than the other. We should be more important than the other. Just as much peace among both groups as possible. But sadly, he would be assassinated in 2005, I want to say. And assassinations would occur all throughout the 2000s and 2010s on either side as well. Kind of reminds me of Gandhi, to be honest, how it was a man saying, listen, despite our religions, we all need to come together. And even though everyone agrees, there's still those who don't, and those are the loudest ones because they use violence, right? I'm not saying he was Gandhi, but I'm saying the situation is quite similar. His assassination sparked the Cedar Revolution, which was a nonviolent reaction to his death, and was mainly targeted toward the Syrian military because remember, they're still here. They're still occupying Beirut. And it really pushed the Syrian military out of Beirut. Now, at this point in time in 2024, today that I'm filming this is December 8th, and I've prolonged filming this just to make sure to see what would happen, and I'm glad I did, because the Assad regime in Syria fell last night. And many political prisoners who were arrested in Beirut at this time for protesting against Syria have been released and are coming home to Beirut right now as I record this. Excellent, excellent, excellent. So, yes, that happened. But like I said, there would be many protests throughout the 2010s. There would be bombings. And there would be the siege of Israel in 2006. I almost forgot to mention this. We need to talk about Hezbollah. Hezbollah is technically a political party in Lebanon, but their priority is the destruction of Israel. They are jihadists, and they are true to their word. They do launch attacks against Israel, and Israel retaliates extremely hard. It's Israel's MO. If you punch me, I'm going to obliterate you. Is Israel's MO. I'm not attacking Israel. That's just fact. Let's be real. You can take that statement however you want. It's true. So they would attack Beirut in 2006 after Hezbollah strikes. It was the largest Israeli attack on Beirut and Lebanon until 2024, but I'm getting ahead of myself. There's one big event that we need to mention before that, and that occurred on August 4th, 2020. Now, what's happening in Lebanon in 2020? A lot. That banking system that I mentioned is collapsing. I think by 2020 you could officially say it has collapsed. Lebanon has defaulted on like every kind of account you can think of. The currency is plummeting. It's a disaster. Not to mention there's now a global pandemic happening. And the Lebanese government had their priorities in places like those and not at what was happening in the port here. So I want to say in like 2014, a ship rolled up carrying ammonium nitrate, which is used mainly in like fertilizers and pesticides, but in its raw state is very flammable and explosive. They pulled in to drop off this ammonium nitrate, and the boat was declared not seaworthy. And it got stuck in the harbor, and it got caught up in paperwork, and it sat there until it sank, like years and years later. The ammonium nitrate just sat in a warehouse there, and it was being stored next to fireworks. You can see where this is going. A small fire detonates both, and a massive explosion rocks the entire city of Beirut. Many, many people lose their lives. Many, many, many people are devastatingly injured. Most of the buildings and infrastructure in this downtown area are obliterated. And it's still trying to, Beirut is still trying to recover to this day. I'm going to show you on Google Earth the shipyard that is still just in complete tatters, and the area around it is still destroyed to this day. It has not been fully cleaned up. And I think that's mainly because the scale is so massive that it's going to take at least another decade to get it all cleaned up, to be honest. Considering what's happening in Gaza, Hezbollah starts to attack Israel over the border here, and Israel retaliates extra hard by trying to, and their opinion is to assassinate Hezbollah leaders who are in the area just south of Beirut here, in the city area there. They do so by blowing up like whole city blocks and invading and occupying. And they did actually carry out their mission. They did get the people that they wanted taken out. And they declared a ceasefire on November 27th. Now, I was just checking the news like an hour before filming this. Both sides, Hezbollah and Israel, both claim that both sides have violated the ceasefire. So we'll have to keep an eye on the situation there and hope that that those who aren't involved are left alone, because that's my main concern. Beirut's been through enough. Please stop bombing this poor city. Please stop attacking this poor city. It's always those who have nothing to do with these conflicts that get in between, and I'm not okay with that. This city has just been through it for the past decades, and they've been desperately trying to pick up the pieces, and it just feels like over and over and over again, it just is regressed back, I suppose. And today, Beirut is a beautiful, gorgeous modern city with a thriving nightlife, beautiful coastal areas, tourist spots. It has everything that major cities have. Excellent food. You name it, you can find it here. Shops, and you know, all the bells and whistles of a beautiful modern city. And I just hope and pray that Beirut's worst days are over, and that peace can come to the city, and it can grow and flourish and become just the beautiful, bright beacon of Lebanon. And that is the history of Lebanon. That is the history of Beirut. My goodness. Why don't we head over to the tablet, and I'll show you some of the sights around this beautiful city. Here we are in Beirut. Wait, where'd my pencil go? I'm in the dark. Here it is. Here we are in Beirut. Let's start by zooming out so you can see exactly where we are in the world. You can see this big, almost a peninsula jutting out there into the coast. Easy way to find Beirut. So here's the Mediterranean. You can see there's Cyprus, Turkey. Down here you can see Egypt, Sinai. There's Gaza right there, Israel up here, into Lebanon, and Syria's up here. I guess zooming further out, in case you still don't know where we are, here's the Mediterranean. There's Europe, Italy sticking out. Saudi Arabia is over here. So on and so forth. You can see the Black Sea. And yeah, I hope that gives you a good perspective of where we are in the world. Now, as you can see, the only area that we're really talking about is Beirut proper, because this is part of another, I think they have governorates in Lebanon. All of this down here, which you can see is just an extension of the city. It's an invisible line separating that. But this is just the Beirut proper that we're talking about tonight. So a lot of the strikes from Israel have occurred down here. So my surprise when I'm trying to research the events that have happened in the past few months and like, why isn't it coming up when I type in Beirut? It's because it didn't. At least prove me wrong if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong. But it seems it didn't happen in Beirut proper. It happened just to the south here. It was the areas that Israel was targeting. So I think we should start with the coast and work our way in. And of course we have to start with the Al Roush rocks, which you can see right here, which look kind of boring from here until you see what they look like. Isn't that gorgeous? You can take little boat tours in and out and around the rocks. And little caves and things there. How gorgeous is that? These are stunning little rocks. How pretty that is. It reminds me of when we were doing Baja California. It reminds me of the rocks in Baja California Sur. Some delicious Lebanese food there. You enjoy the famous site there. Pretty neat. You can see some of the skyline behind it. Ooh, all lit up at night. It's kind of eerie. But yeah, this is the beautiful coastal area. If we go a bit farther south, we hit the beach. You can see right here. Let's check that out real quick. Lovely little beach there. I love beaches. I love swimming. I love being in the sand. I love a good beach. And this looks like a nice one. That would be me right there, just watching the waves and listening and smelling and just enjoying the... Oh, look, they're training. Can you see? They're training. Oof. The running on the beach is not something I do at all. No, thank you. Running in the sand is exhausting. But isn't this gorgeous? This is my kind of beach right here, where it's not crowded with people. It's nice and empty and just right, and you can enjoy the water. And it's the Mediterranean, so you know that water feels pretty great. If we head over here, I want to say, yeah, this is like the, I think it's over here, the Corniche area. I think maybe it's a bit further up. Yeah, like over here. The Corniche, which is kind of like in San Francisco, we'd call it the Embarcadero, just like the seaside area where you can get beautiful views of the ocean and enjoy good food and nice sights to see. But the main area to explore is over here. This is Zaytuna Bay. Suddenly my camera doesn't want to focus. I apologize for that. But this area really reminds me of like Dubai and the Emirates in a bit, in that it's very modern and, come on camera, very lit up, all beautiful. And of course you can take beautiful strolls there along the water and see all of the boats docked there. It's a lovely little corner of Beirut. But then we head just over here to the harbor, the shipyards over here. And this is where we can find some of the destruction that occurred. Make sure I'm in the right spot. Yeah, over here. Look at this. Just devastated. It's still exploded. Looks like they've been building a roof to this building here. But this is the granary over here, where the explosion started. I believe it was here in the grain silo. And you can see what it looks like today. Just a husk of a building all ripped apart. This is a beautiful statue made with the rubble. Let me show you that in a minute. Just absolutely destroyed by that explosion in 2020. Let's take a look. It's over here. Come on. Thank you. The Gesture, it's called. Really haunting, isn't it? Look at this destruction here. And it looks like it pours out water too, which is a really beautiful thing. My camera's like, move back. I can't. You're looking at a tablet. Sorry about the zooming in and out. Losing focus. Look at that. Pew. Really beautiful statue. Really haunting, isn't it? But yeah, you can look all throughout this area. And I kind of want to come back to this place in like a year from now and see what satellite images we can pick up here, how much it's changed. And like, even if we look across the street here, some of these buildings still haven't recovered as well. Okay, the camera's not out of focus, it's actually blurry there, so we'll move on. Those buildings are actually blurry in real life, not just on camera. Let's check out the National Museum of Beirut and see some beautiful historical artifacts. Will that help you, camera? Not really. Okay, maybe. Okay, what if I move you back a little bit? Will that help, camera? Are you okay? Oh my gosh, this poor camera. Okay, hold on. Maybe it's just, let me brush the camera a bit. No, that made it worse. Oh, my poor camera. All right. Well, here is the National Museum. Look at all these mummies. I like that they have them laid out and they have this mirror here so you can see their faces without getting too close. Some hieroglyphs here. That's really beautiful. You can see horse right there. Lots of cool Egyptian stuff. I imagine the Phoenicians traded with the Egyptians quite often, and lots of treasures have been found. Look at all these cool statues here. They look quite Roman, don't they? That was my chair squeaking. Really beautiful. Oh wow, look at this. That's a beautiful bust. Oop, there's a mummy. Oh, let's move that along. Someone having a bad day by the looks of it laying there. Camera. Not as bad a day as my camera's having all of a sudden. Beautiful mosaic. Isn't that lovely? I love Roman floor mosaics. They are just a work of art, I think. Even in like today's standard, it's pretty beautiful. There's another museum nearby that I really want to show you, but I have to remember where it is. Come back. We're going over here in a minute. Oh, I forgot where it was. I have to show you this. It's not this museum, is it? No. That's Nicholas Sursok's museum. What is that? A modern and contemporary art museum. That's nice, but that's not what I want to show you. It was near here. Oh, goodness. Of course, I found it no problem while I was practicing this video, but then when I'm recording and the camera's waking out, I can't find it. Where did it go? It wasn't over here. Maybe it was. My goodness, where did it? Okay, let's just type in. Let's try this. Let's type in museum. And it should show us all kinds of museums nearby. Dum, 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 dum. This one, thank you. I want to show you this museum because it has preserved the destruction from the Civil War on the outside. And they have not repaired the outside as a reminder of the Civil War. Look at this. There's quite a few buildings in Beirut that have done this as memorials, but it's just so haunting. This is what the entire city looked like by the end of the Civil War in 1990. Holes there from shrapnel and bullets. Just complete destruction. Some more modern amenities in the other parts of the museum showing life in Beirut. But let's head downtown. I think this is the last place I want to take you. There are many other sites to see in Beirut. I'd highly encourage you to explore it on your own, but you can't go to Beirut without seeing this corner here. We are in downtown. Here's the Place de l'Etoile, and the Martyrs Monument is over here. Pop back up, thank you, Martyrs Square. So in this corner here, we have two beautiful buildings. The Muhammad Al-Amin Mosque, which is, I love the color blue here, that's beautiful. This gorgeous mosque inside. And next door to, I love that chandelier. Next door to this gorgeous mosque is this Maronite Christian cathedral, which, hello. Where's Google Earth? Why do you disappoint me every time? Is the everything filter on? Yes. Why aren't you popping up the tag of for this church? Why aren't any of the tags popping up? Well, some of them are. Google Earth, please. Please, thank you. No, come back. Thank you. There we go. St. George Maronite Cathedral. Pretend that didn't happen. And you can see they are literally right next door to each other. Like a symbol of unity, among religions. Right next door to each other. And then behind these two structures, if the geotag will pop up. Oh no, come back. There we go. The old Roman Forum. And it's really beautiful. Obviously, it's all crumbled up, but what's still around is so neat. Of course, the Forum being the heart of the cities of Rome. I love Beirut. Me too. And all of the buildings around it. You can see the beautiful mosque right here and the church right here and the Forum here. That's pretty neat. It's cool to have all of that in one corner, right? I think that's all I wanted to show you. You know what I want to show you real quick is how close we are to the mountains. So you can see all of these beautiful mountains here that make up the backdrop of the city. We're going to close this out by looking at, come back. I need you to work with me. Thank you. Someone just tagged downtown Beirut, and it's a nice little slideshow. We're going to end the video on this. You can see the Parisian inspiration here. It used to be called Paris of the Middle East. And they even nicknamed it the Switzerland of the Middle East because of the skiing nearby and the harmoniousness of all these cultures and religions living together. Big clock tower here in the center of town. But this is going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing, as this is an ongoing series on my channel. And next we're going to be going to Portugal. And Portugal never disappoints. It's such a beautiful corner of the world. You're going to have to subscribe so you won't miss out. If you learned something new today, give this video a thumbs up. Let me know any cool facts you learned down in the comments. I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational. Pretty. And I hope that you have a good